I'm so excited to be talking to y'all today about Camila Núñez's Year of Disasters as part of the book tour hosted by Colored Pages. So thank you so much to Colored Pages and the publisher for an arc of this book so that I could review it. So in this book, we follow Camila, who has recently turned 16 years old, and her friend gives her a deck of tarot cards for her birthday. And so they do a reading for this upcoming year in her life. And that reading seems to only spell disaster and chaos for her future. So we follow her as she lives through this year, and seemingly the cards are in fact predicting her future. So I gave this book 3 stars. Overall, I enjoyed it. It felt personally to me very slice of life. Even though several significant things happen in Camila Núñez's life, it also, as an adult, felt very much like these are things that are like super major and impactful for teenagers, but I was kind of like, well, those were mild inconveniences. You'll be fine, Camila. But again, as someone who is an adult and not a teenager, I could see how definitely this did feel realistic for a teenager to feel like all of these things were such major things happening in her life when they're very typical teenage experiences, because a lot of it was around falling in love, heartbreak, and that kind of stuff. I do have to say what I appreciated the most about this book was the representation of anxiety. Camila deals with anxiety, and pretty bad anxiety at that. Several times we watch her as she falls into like anxiety thought spirals that lead her to think about like the worst case scenarios, and she has to find ways to pull herself out of that. And I think that was so well represented alongside with the therapy she goes to, because it does reach a point where her parents are like, no, you should restart therapy. You had stopped, but you should restart because it looks like you're really struggling again, and we don't want it to be as bad as when you initially started high school and things got really, really bad with your anxiety. So I found the session or 2 that we have in this book really interesting and like a very positive portrayal of what therapy can be like for people. I also like that there's a point where Camila goes to a meditation retreat. That can be tricky for people with anxiety. I say as someone who really struggled to get into like meditation and yoga, because it's like, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts either. So that was something I experimented for a while. Like once you actually get into the hang of it, it can be really helpful and peaceful, but it is a challenge, but a potentially useful tool for people who deal with anxiety. Beyond that, I loved how unapologetically queer and Latina the story was. It was very clear how significant Camila's queer identity was to her. It was something that affected her friendships, her relationships with her family, her parents, and all of that. And I found it so interesting to have a character who's more of what one would expect to be like the quiet gay. She's not super loud, out and proud in the stereotypical way, but she is out among her parents and her peers. And so she's still living her very queer life, but in a different way than the stereotype is. So that was interesting as well to have. As for Latina representation, Camila is specifically Cuban, and I loved hearing about her love for her family, her food, the dynamics that were very typical of a Latina household. That was all fantastic. And it definitely had sprinklings of what makes the Cuban American experience more particular, because at the end of the day, Latina people are not a monolith. We all have different experiences that separate our communities, even if we have things that bring us together. So overall, I would recommend giving this book a try if it sounds at all interesting to you. It could be, in my opinion, a more chill read, apart from all the anxiety, but I'm so used to that's like par for the course for me. A more relaxing, less stressful and intense read than maybe some of the stuff you've been reading recently. So go give it a shot.